My name is Joyce. It's a beautiful Monday to you. Welcome once again. I did tell you we have a guest, and GMO is a conversation. We'll be right back. Not going anywhere.
Quality talk.
Intelligent conversations.
Always interesting.
So engaging.
Sometimes even mind-boggling. Nigeria Info. Ask everyone. Anyone.
You will not be left in doubt. You're on the sunny side. This is 99.3. We're Nigeria Info and welcome. It's 31 minutes past 12. My name's Joyce, and hope you had a very good weekend because the work week begins with serious stuff. Our guest this afternoon has been here before, Dr. Christopher Amour. He's a doctor, and interestingly, he's also a farmer. So good to have you here again for the second time on Nigeria Info to discuss, of course, the science, the science, the new adaptive culture, and maybe even the politics of food in Nigeria. Thank you so much for being here. I cannot hear you, so I think you have to maybe turn on your microphone. You have to turn on your microphone, sir.
Okay, yeah, guys, thank you for calling my attention to the fact that I was muted.
You're mute.
Yes,
yeah.
I'm a professor. I'm a professor actually. I'm
Professor.
the director of Agricultural Safety and Agricultural Research.
Okay, you know the last time you were here, I actually forgot to ask you, do we have a seed bank here? This is really, it's been on my mind for a while now. I want to know if you know that.
Yeah, we don't have a seed bank here. We are just trying to set up one in Benue and then across certain areas in the country.
What do you mean we don't have a seed bank? We
Yeah,
don't?
what we have, what we have in some of the research centers that is supposed to be a seed bank, unfortunately, there are no seeds there.
Oh, wow. That's surprising to me. Everywhere else in the world, there's a seed bank.
Yeah, we don't have here. Government did not take serious look at that until now that transnational corporations are trying to infiltrate our seed system. For example, recently I was at the National Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria at the headquarters in Abuja, and what I realized shocked me. At the Ministry of Agriculture, I was told that they actually access either a grant or a loan in the tune of about $150 million. And then the people advancing the grant or the loan, as the case may be, turned back and said, oh, wait a minute, you guys don't have seeds in this country. So if there was a seed bank, that wouldn't have been the case. So they collected back a chunk of that amount to the tune of about 100 million or so to go procure seeds, to get seeds for Nigeria's federal government, Ministry of Agriculture, for distribution to Nigerian farmers to procure, to get the seeds from outside Nigeria. That's proof negative, isn't it?
That's unbelievable,
seeds here.
actually. That's terribly unbelievable. It also means that there is no documentation, there's no history of the different variety of seeds that have emerged from a set time in the past to our current dispensation. So there is no follow-up.
There is some documentation.
But
There is some
not in actual
documentation.
seeds. Maybe on paper. On paper?
Well, there is a documentation on seeds, and we may argue it's on paper
Okay.
because actually what
There are
they
no
do
seeds.
is not reflecting in what we have on the ground. Yes, there wouldn't have been this story that we are faced with now in the case of seed scarcity.
Okay, I want to stay a little bit more longer on this whole grant being received and then the realization that we didn't have a seed bank. And so a chunk of that money was withdrawn.
And the seeds procured with it supposedly and brought back to the country
Yeah.
for onward distribution to
What
farmers.
kind of seeds are those? Okay, I'm with you, but I just curiosity. What kind of seeds are those?
That's the question on my lips too. That's the question that Nigerians should ask. That's the question that we expected the responsible officers of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture to ask. But as it were, it appears they've been sold out already to the trending genetically modified organisms. So you know that if seeds are brought in from, for example, the United States of America, if it were corn, a large percentage of the corn cultivated in the US is GMO. If it is soya, over 90% of the soya cultivated in the United States is GMO. So it goes without saying that perhaps that's what we are dealing with, but nobody is coming out to clearly state that, oh, what we accessed from these granting agencies are genetically modified seeds.
Okay. I'd like to get a personal view on what you suppose the motive of the grant-given agencies are in Nigeria or in Africa. Is it really to help eradicate poverty? Are they trying to eradicate poverty, as they commonly say?
As a professor, as an academic, as a researcher, let me give you my own perspective.
Please.
That many others share too. Generally speaking, economically, aids or grants are never there to assist you. They are to perpetuate a cycle of dependence. And over the years, there are many economic theories that support what I'm saying. Over the years, in Africa, in some part of Asia, and some parts of Latin America, what aids have done, and these aids often are advanced or negotiated at the instances of the Bretton Woods institutions, that's the IMF, the World Bank, and what they have done is to perpetuate dependency, because aids have a way of suspending your thinking, your developmental instincts, because you are expecting some handouts here and there. So to answer your concern directly, my thinking, my personal thoughts about these aids, these grants, so to speak, is not to help us. It's to perpetuate dependence. That's why I would expect that, if the granting agency realized that we never had enough seeds in this country to serve the country nationwide, what they needed to do, why the haste? What they needed to do was to support the country if there wasn't any capacity within Nigeria to multiply.
I may have lost you temporarily. The sunny side. You're listening to Nigeria Info. Okay, I have you back. I lost you momentarily.
Oh, okay.
You need a moment?
So I was saying,
to
conclude my thought,
yeah.
I was saying that you would observe that if this was intended to promote advancement, to promote development of our seed culture, to the level that we could cater for ourselves nationally, which has never been their idea at all. Their idea has never been to promote internal development to the point of self-sustainability, even though they shout and they chant sustainability in their development goals or their social development, whatever they call it. We have observed that that was not the aim. That is my notion. That's my personal observation. That has never been the aim. The aim is to perpetuate dependency. There are dependency models that explain this in economics. I'm not an economist, but I read, I'm a researcher. So anything that pertains to what is the thematic area I'm addressing, I research around it. And I found out that these grants were not intended at stimulating internal development, internal growth, in internal advancement in this area of seed development, seed multiplication, and self-sustainability, self-sufficiency. That's why they rush back to procure the stuff that they have over there to bring to us. So I think they have succeeded in giving our bureaucracy the opium, the hook of the opium, that we must always depend on them, always call on them to this. But we have internal capacity, to the best of my knowledge, we have internal capacity to develop, to multiply our seeds, if attention is given in that direction.
Are there groups, NGOs that are saddled with, say, responsibility or whose passion it is to educate farmers on what is happening on a global scale? I mean, we're just about to step into GMO, but just before we go into that conversation, this is a wild thought. I'm wondering whether the Nigerian farmer, besides giving money, getting a grant, is being educated, at least as to the seeds and where it's coming from. Are you aware of any sort of that kind of organization in existence?
Yeah, there are a couple of non-governmental organizations and civil society-based organizations. There are a couple of them there. But the landscape is skewed. The landscape in this is skewed towards he who pays the piper to determine the tune. Most of the NGOs are financed from the same people or the same transnational organizations, or transvendors, I call them, who are pumping money into promoting their trade. So as much as there are a couple of them, with a few exceptions, they still derive their funding in the form of grants. And you see them scrambling because these organizations, these granting organizations, these funding organizations present a case in a manner so competitive that these NGOs, because they are proliferated all over the space, they come scrambling for these grants. And the man that is funding it is there smiling at the other end of the stick. So that means because the source of their funding is coming from somewhere, which is inadvertently promoting these kinds of technology, biotechnology, they don't seem to get sufficient funding when they want to outrightly go into educating the farmer in the real sense of it on what the farmer is being presented and what the implications are. There are a few others, like head of Mother Earth Foundation, that is OMF. I think it's directed by Dr. Nimo Basi, and other few ones that are having independent funding. And then we have another one, our own center, that's the Center for Food Safety and Agricultural Research, CEFSA. We are independent. We get our funding, we fund our activities independently. So we are making effort, but there is direly a need for a multiplicity of such independently funded civil society-based organizations or non-governmental organizations that will educate the farmer, especially against the backdrop that what we used to know in the past as agricultural extension officers has been wiped off significantly. There are not many agricultural extension officers in our rural agricultural settings anymore. Even in the university where I practice my vocation, the course, Agri-Extension, Agri-Economics and Extension, is no longer highly subscribed. It's not a course that many people want to come to read, and because, of course, it is not incentivized, and the jobs were not there for them. So everybody that goes to school goes to be employable. And once the jobs are not there, they are no longer interested. So the organizations are there, but two major challenges, if I may summarize. One challenge is the funding. Some of them are being paid. In fact, some of them are even being fronted by the purveyors of this deception called GMOs. And therefore, they don't give them the kind of funding, because every funding comes with specifications on the application of the funding. So they don't give them the kind of funding that will educate farmers in this specific direction. The second challenge is that they are not there. Those that are independently funded are not many enough, and the funding is not usually available to them. But we are making efforts.
What is the government's role in all of this? I would think that the government would have a duty to educate the public on food sustainability, crop hybridization, and whatever else by way of educating the farmer goes. Is there any government involvement? Is the government sponsoring? Well, it doesn't appear the government is sponsoring because you haven't mentioned it, but has this been brought to the attention of the government?
Unfortunately, or rather, sincerely, government has a role. You've already captured it in your poser. But unfortunately, transvendors, transnational purveyors of this deception have perfected a scheme where they develop minds, they procure minds and develop them and then advance them to be positioned in gatekeeping positions of the bureaucracy, in gatekeeping positions of government, regulatory agencies, policy drivers in the government sector, such that These people whose responsibility, like I will mention one, the National Biosafety Management Agency is a gatekeeper. Their responsibility is not just to educate farmers, but is to also extract all that is required from the promoters of these organisms, these biotechnology foods, engineered foods, genetically engineered foods. They will extract every information, including safety information, including
Experimentation,
everything,
particularly experimentation.
everything. Then they are supposed to educate the Nigerian government at large. As the politicians, they also are supposed to educate the consumer, the Nigerian consumer. But what we have experienced in the current dispensation is that the regulator, who is the gatekeeper at the behest of the government, has suddenly become the promoter, the advertiser of these patented proprietary genetically engineered seeds. These are seeds that are patented by business organizations. And then you find government functionaries from the ministers or minister of state to the gatekeepers coming up on air to advance, to promote these things, instead of them to be an impartial arbiter. And if they are to express partiality at any form, it should be on the side of the Nigerian consumer, because they have a social contract with the Nigerian. But the opposite is the case. And it clearly smacks of something that I call a procurement of minds. So what we have experienced, by my own assessment, by my own observation, is that people, Nigerians, compatriots, have been prepared and positioned in gatekeeping positions in the governmental bureaucracy, where they become marketers and promoters on behalf of transnational organizations who are coming to advance their trade, whose motive is profit, and not the welfare, the safety of the Nigerian consumer and the Nigerian environment, and even the Nigerian economy and the Nigerian security.
On an ethical level, I would even say that there is a duty to retain and maintain the freedom of seed ownership, and to not know that, or for the Nigerian farmer to not be educated in that regard, is actually startling. I cannot even put in words how terrifying it is that the Nigerian farmer has absolutely no education as to what is happening politically. Okay, but then let's go to, you are, besides being a professor, you're also a farmer. What do you know about GMO in Benue? Its utility, its consumption, those who buy it, what farmers think of it, and whether organic crops even still be a thing within that region where you are situated?
Thank you. First of all, Benue State is vast Nigeria, not just in name. By virtue of geography and soil, the freshwater feeding has the potential to be even the basket of the West African sub-region. That means we have a huge potential in the agricultural sector. Now, as we currently seeing, GMOs are not the thing. Benue farmer has come on a very direct heat of the use application of pesticides, because pesticides like the forerunner of GMOs. But as we're talking about telemaize now and other variants, they are not planted in Benue yet. There is no official governmental program to promote them yet. But as it's being promoted by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and the Federal Ministry of Environment here in Abuja, across the entire states of Nigeria, we know that it's a matter of what they're doing at the level Center for Food Safety and Agricultural Research is we are educating farmers at the local level, and we are also creating some training programs at institutional levels to train them the advantages and the options in organic agriculture, because largely, primarily, Benue is an organic agriculture, but chemicals that are pervaded agricultural and environment of Benue State. So right now, the government doesn't have a position. The Benue State government doesn't have a position on GMOs. The state government, it is my advocacy that agriculture, which should be on a concurrent list, should not be something that the federal government should be loading down on the state governments. Each state government should, especially against the backdrop of the fact that the Land Use Act, because all of agriculture is either from the land or from the water. The Land Use Act clearly defines that the lands in the federation are in the custody of the state governments. So I don't understand how the federal government will now suddenly become the one advertising and promoting patents that are from outside Nigeria that clearly violate our economic stance as a nation. We trying to hold them on state. As I speak to you now, there is no governmental position on GMOs in this. The farm not aware that GMOs or have not accepted GMOs at the master for food. In the way, interestingly and electrically, what the farmer expects or what the farmer thinks is that if human security, the herdsmen issue, banditry issue, terrorist issue is moved to the access farmers, benefit has been produced food in large quantities without GMOs ever. And the farmer believes that he does not need GMO to advance to even feed Nigeria or the whole of that.
Okay, so I'm going to be off on a break out 2 minutes and a half. In that time, I want you to, for our farmers who are listening to you, is there a possible alternative to GMO? 2 minutes is not enough. We go off on a break. We come back and...
Yeah, it's an ample alternative for GMOs. As a matter of fact, for us in Nigeria and for us from CEFSA, we advise, because we're a research center, we advise that GMOs are not an option for Africa. So the option is organic agriculture. Before the direct organic agriculture came into the front line, Nigerian farming country have been practicing the natural agricultural practices that they inherited from their forebears. Now, organic farming it's been systematized. Let me example for pest control. There are biocides that can control pests effectively, and then there are ample good agro practices that are taught in our university, are taught by our research centers, are taught by different organizations, no commerce. And these are proven to produce yields comparable, if not more. In many instances, yields that most are promoting. So there is no GMO is not option. GMO is not an alternative. It's not option. The alternative is organic agriculture. If we must improve the way modernity or civilization is coming.
Okay, so I have about a few seconds before commercial break, and I want to leave you with a thought before I go off on this break. Now, we're told that the new variety of yields 10 times more than the earlier variety, which is about 3 tons. This one we hear yields about 10 tons per acre. I want to know where Nigerians can go, particularly research centers, to be educated. I think it's necessary because every Nigerian at this point is now saddled with the responsibility to not just have knowledge of GMO, but to have knowledge of food, and plays a role in the preservation of seeds in Africa, or in Nigeria particularly. We're going to go off on a break. When we come back, this conversation continues. My name's Joyce. We'll be right back.
More conversation, more talk, more right after this.
Into the heart of global affairs.
We go beyond the headlines and into the real stories shaping our world.
Why paying more than $200 million to have 1,000 Kenyan soldiers come to Haiti when we could use that money to train the police?
What you've done with your grief is actually to spread it and give it and turn it into the love.
This served Netanyahu because he didn't think Hamas would ever be a serious military threat.
Congo is a country with so much wealth. The people have been fighting to regain control.
From the corridors of power to the front lines of change, Borderline brings you in with analysis of the issues.
The U.S. has power over them. Most of them will steal money from Haiti and invest in the U.S.
Some people who support Sonko and Jumai Pai, over half of them don't have a voter's card.
Sounds like Nigeria.
Join Ireti Bakari Yusuf on Borderlines as she engages with policymakers and thought leaders,
giving you perspectives and insights you won't find anywhere else.
Be part of the conversation. Join us live.
Your voice matters on Borderlines as we explore the complexities.
Every Friday at 4 p.m.
on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Stay informed, stay engaged.
Step into the conversation.
Who says you can't have it all with one play?
I got that defined point. You have just won yourself.
Congratulations. Hello, good morning.
Yes, Melitus. One play, don't talk to 2 players because you won 20K.
So now you won yourself 20,000 naira.
My name is Well Done.
Okay, well done. You want to tell you well done. You won yourself 20,000 naira.
With 500 naira, you can play to win big. From 120,000 naira to 190,000 naira daily on Nigeria Info. Go to oneplay.ng and play with 500 naira. And in a few seconds, your ticket is in the draw. Or dial *347 *880 *3#. Win daily on Nigeria Info. 50,000 naira on Morning Crossfire. 60,000 naira on WhatsApp Lagos. 20,000 naira on Sunnyside. And 60,000 naira on Game On. So Lagos, what are you waiting for? The more you play, the better your chances of winning. Remember to dial *347 *880 *3#. Play responsibly. Not suitable for persons under the age of 18. The event
Nationals is coming. August 12th in Lagos. Witness the brightest minds from across the country in a battle of intellect and eloquence.
Have you ever wondered if controlling resources will be the key to dismantling?
Yes, a child has not been properly academically satisfied.
Has such person not also get experience, like your fifth point?
Experience fierce competition.
Peace cannot be kept by force. It's not because there's natural resources there.
Persuasive arguments.
I believe that through a balanced approach to religion and education.
Don't you think that such a person is old enough to decide?
And innovative thinking.
By 1985, the poverty level was below 46%. If they don't have money for tuition, are you saying they are not going to be accountable?
Whether you're a debater or a spectator, mark your calendars for August 12, 2024. I beg to differ. The Nationals in Lagos, Nigeria. Get ready to be part of history. For sponsorship and other inquiries, call Lagos Larry Griffin 0706 827 1163, Shola Kolade 0907 173 3835, or send an email to info@nigeriainfo.fm. I beg to differ students debates competition. The Tournament of Champions.
.3 Nigeria Info.
Your number one station for talk. Let's talk. Let's talk.
.3 Nigeria Info, the sunny side, and welcome if you have just tuned in. We have a guest with us this afternoon. His name is Dr. Christopher Amua. He is a professor and a farmer, and we're discussing genetically modified seeds or grains. And I know that you may have heard about it, and what may appear to be a little overwhelming for you would be objective, what it means to have genetically modified foods, and what the aim of the manufacturers are. And of course, these are questions that I would like to ask our guest after the news update on the sunny side. It's very beautiful. Monday afternoon, and welcome if you have just tuned in. We're following through on global developments. This time around, it will probably be one of the most popular global subjects: food, poverty, eradication, and genetically modified food. On the other side of the hour, the conversation will continue with our guests. My name is Joyce.
Round the clock, we'll bring the news, sports, events, talk,
and even more talk.
Crisis averted in aviation sector.
The conversation, your views and suggestions.
We talk on Nigeria Info.
Quality talk.
Intelligent conversations.
Always interesting.
So engaging.
Sometimes even mind-boggling.
Nigeria Info. Ask everyone. Anyone. Activate. We are radioactive on 99.3 Nigeria Info. My name is Joyce.
The news update on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
99.3 Nigeria Info. You are listening to the news update this hour. We start with this report coming from the military. In the early hours of today, an unmanned aerial vehicle belonging to the Nigerian Air Force crashed in the Igabi local government area of Kaduna State. And we hear that the incident occurred around 5 a.m., causing significant alarm among residents. Reports had earlier suggested that it was a helicopter crash. But in a statement, the spokesperson for the Nigerian Air Force, Edward Gapquet, said it was a UAV and not a helicopter as earlier believed. He says it experienced a mishap after takeoff for a mission at a location near Rumji village and about 15 kilometers from base. Since it is an unmanned vehicle, there were no casualties on board or on the ground. Senate Chief Whip Ali Ndume has called for the urgent intervention over the rise in female bombers in Borno State. Ndume hails from Goza. The call comes after the teenage female suicide bombers detonated the explosives that killed 28 children, pregnant women, and others on Saturday in Goza in multiple bomb attacks. Ndume expressed worry that there was an urgent need to provide more surveillance and security in the state to prevent future occurrences. Here in Lagos, Babajide Sanwo-Olu says prayers contributed to the peace of Lagos State. According to him, he said this when he attended a faith revival program of the Lord's Chosen Charismatic Revival Movement. Sanwo-Olu said Lagos, with many mega worship centers, had expectedly remained peaceful. He was represented at the event by his Chief of Staff, Tayo Ayorinde. Sanwo-Olu expressed hope that continued prayers will attract divine intervention that will make Lagos better. And France's far-right national rally made big gains in the first round of the parliamentary election, winning 34.4% of the votes. The left-wing coalition, New Popular Front, came second with 27.9%. Celebrating her party's success, Marine Le Pen said, quote, "Democracy has spoken," as she declared President Emmanuel Macron's camp practically wiped out. His alliance came third with 20.7% of the vote. It is unclear if the RN will be able to garner enough support at the second round next Sunday to take full control of the National Assembly. The party's co-leader, Jordan Bardella, aims to become the next Prime Minister. That's the news update this hour. You are listening to The Sunny Side with Joyce on 99.3 Nigeria Info. I am Yvonne Ohaifa. Good afternoon, Lagos.
Quality talk.
Intelligent conversations.
Always interesting.
So engaging.
Sometimes even mind-boggling.
Nigeria Info. Nigeria Info. Ask everyone. Anyone.
We're 99.3. This is Nigeria Info. Welcome. It's 4 minutes past 1 p.m. And if you have just tuned in, you have missed some substantial and sensible part of our conversation this afternoon, particularly the fact that the Nigerian, as a Nigerian in Nigeria, should note there is no seed bank. Well, we'll talk about that sometime later on during the course of the day, but our guest is still with us. And just before I hand over this conversation to him, his name is Dr. Christopher Amour. It's also worth noting what has been in the news lately. In January 2024, Nigeria approved commercial release of 4 telemaize variety, which have been genetically engineered for improved insect resistance and drought tolerance. In addition to South Africa, Nigeria has become the second country in Africa to approve the commercialization of genetically engineered corn. In marketing year 2022 and 2023, Nigeria produced estimated 12.7 metric tons of corn with an average yield of 2.2 tons per hectare. According to the African Agriculture Technology Foundation, the new type of maize could reach up to 10 tons per hectare if grown under agronomic practices. Sir, I would love for you to, given this particular report, tell us what the better alternative is. You have said that GMO is not an option. And I want every Nigerian who's listening, farmer or not, to fully comprehend what it means. Because here they're marketing that this particular genetically modified variety can bring forward 10 tons per hectare in comparison to 2 tons per hectare. I guess it's seductive. And, profit has been the agenda with genetically modified. Or no, profit has been the bait given the pursuit.
The question.
Okay.
The question to ask is, at what cost? As scientists, we know that there is always a cost. Matter is not created. So at what cost? At what cost? But the fact we have observed, and let me begin with the questions we have posed to them. 10 tons per hectare, where has it been tried? And what are the empirical data, statistically, that they have generated? With other genetically engineered seeds that we have farmers used in this country, we have observed that, yes, the yield increase may come up in the first generation, but the next generation, the yield is not like that. In fact, the yield is far below. And in addition to that, scientific research data we have gotten from the United States of America, where the utilization of genetically modified organisms is at its peak the world over, we have known that where there are instances of yield improvement, it's as a result of the improvement in the gaps, that is good agronomic practices. And I like the way you captured it. You can see that they have said that if grown under good agronomic practices. But yeah, before we go further, we have observed with research data from the USDA, that's United States Department of Agriculture, that with the introduction of genetically modified organisms as seeds, as foods, farmers gradually veer off GAPs, that's good agronomic practices, because of overdependence of the attributes, on the attributes that are being promoted by these profit mongers of higher yield. That is just one of the promises they make. But coming back to my initial question, where did they try them in Africa? What have they done to sort out the fact of the erosion of good agronomic practices? Because over the landscape, the agricultural landscape in this country, in Nigeria, good agronomic practices are becoming a thing of the past because of the ubiquitous introduction and utilization of some of these promises. That is how they came in the case of pesticides, herbicides. So now, beyond that, we also talk of the issue of safety. And I ask, when you know that this fruit will become as big as your head, but if you eat it, you end up with cancer, would you still go ahead and eat it? Of course, to the man that is selling the fruit to you, he will say, go ahead and eat it. But to you, the consumer, and for us in Nigeria, I want to highlight this very importantly. None of the genetically modified organisms is patented. None of the patents is held by the federal government of Nigeria. Nigerian government and its gatekeepers or her gatekeepers are simply promoting somebody's private business, a transnational company, like Bayer Crop Science, which used to be Monsanto, like Syngenta. So what we are seeing is that you are being promoted a lie. You are being promoted a deception that, yes, there could be some yield, but the yields are not as a result of the genetic engineering per se, because if you plant those crops, those seeds, without good agronomic practices, if the yield was singularly as a result of the genetic modification, there wouldn't have been need for other good agronomic practices like weed control, like fertilization, soil fertility, like irrigation. There wouldn't have been such needs. So the argument has been biased. The narrative has been skewed into a single story to deceive the Nigerian farmer. That's why for us at Center for Food Safety and Agricultural Research, we believe that the panacea is in the right education of the farmer, the right education of the consumer, the right education of the government gatekeepers, and the right education for our politicians. Because our politicians who have been deceived in the large, we have told them at the National Assembly shortly before the motion asking for moratorium or suspension of GMOs in Nigeria. We have told them that why most of the big men in Nigeria, the big politicians, can afford a dinner in London and just hike onto a flight and take dinner in London, and go for medical tourism in London. We know that they cannot hike onto a flight to go take breakfast in London and come back for their duties. Therefore, this flawed gate that they are opening under the ruse of profit, higher yield, is not it at all. There are greater and more grievous concerns of safety to the environment, toxicity to the human person, and we have documented publications that have attested to this. So that thing about higher yield is not a singular it's not a singular certainty. It's dependent on other good agronomic practices that heirloom seeds, native seeds, and organic seeds can give you the same results, if not higher. And from research, we have found out that in places where organic seeds have been utilized, they got higher yield than the GMOs.
Wow. Okay, so for those who are listening who may need some insight or some understanding of genetically modified crops, how would you classify them? Because I think it's going to be a classification in comparison to organic seeds. What would you say in that regard?
Generally, seeds are born either sexually or asexually, but often sexually by sexual plants. Now, it is through the mating of the male pollen and the female part of the plant to produce seeds. and they are generic. Sorry, they are specific. They are general specific. That means they are in lines of special or specific species. That means a tomato seed, a tomato pollen can pollinate a tomato plant to produce tomato seeds and tomato fruits. Now, organic and heirloom seeds are natural seeds that are born out of these natural processes. And a variant of this natural procession comes in the form of hybrid seeds, where scientists like us, researchers and breeders, that is farmers who are in the business of breeding, also can assist the plants, the crops, to cross-fertilize them, extracting or narrowing, channeling the cross-fertilization along directed and specific desirable traits. Genetically modified or genetically engineered seeds are an offshoot or an outcome of biotechnology engineering. That means these are seeds of foods that are created in the laboratories. And often, whereas the organic seeds come out as a process of cisgenesis, that means seeds of similar species cross-pollinate to produce the outcome, the outputs. In genetically engineered seeds, there is what we call transgenesis, and I'll break it down. That is genes from different organisms. It could be from a lizard. A gene can be extracted from a lizard in a laboratory and prepared and inserted into a pawpaw to produce a pawpaw fruit with a certain characteristic or with certain traits, desirable traits, by the engineers, the biotechnologists who are indulging in that practice. Now, it could be because they want higher yield. It could be because they want some certain insects or disease resistance. It could be because they want some kind or level of drought tolerance, or whatsoever it could be. But the bottom line is that
they want to patent it.
It could be they want to patent it. And to extend from what you say, it could be they want to depopulate the world. They want to insert a particular gene that will promote infertility in girls or low sperm counts in males to produce some kind of population or population reduction. It could be whatever. It could be actually a gain of function research. It could be a biological weapon for warfare. But the idea is that they are patented as proprietary materials by those who promote them. And they are not Nigerians. And that leads us, maybe digressing a little bit, but that leads us to the issue of national security. Because these seeds can potentially become biological weapons. And the national security advisor, by this forum, by this medium, I'm calling on the national security advisor to pay close attention to the so-called touted genetically modified organisms.
So an example of that statement would be what, for example? Because, like warfare sometimes is held or perceived to be something physical, like what's happening in the Congo. So if you, go ahead.
Yeah.
An example of what
like what happened in the case of COVID. The SARS-CoV-2 virus was created in a lab. A normal virus, a normal flu virus was taken up and granted functional gain to be able to transmit across humans. And that created a scenario we experienced in late 2019 and early 2020, or the whole of 2020, because it affected global economy, it affected healthcare, it affected every industry in the world. So that is an example of warfare. Now, in traditional biology, we were trained that anthrax, which is like a zoonotic disease or a livestock disease, could be activated in the laboratory, functionated in the laboratory, and spread out there. Then you have cases like, this swine flu. Swine flu can be given function, and it could wipe off the swine industry of any nation. The same thing with the avian flu. So the gain of function research is something real in science. It's not a conspiracy theory. And genetic engineering is what gives rise to that gain of function research, because that basically is the tinkering with the genetic makeup of organisms that confers to them the certain traits that are unique to them. and also certain traits that are desirable by the engineers. So if the trait desirable by these engineers is to reduce Nigeria's population, they can simply engineer the seed and call it tailor maize. And then the federal government will willy-nilly take it and begin to promote it, because some of the people at the National Biosafety Management Agency, the gatekeeper, the National Biotechnology Research and Development Agency, and many other agencies that are supposed to be gatekeeping, unfortunately, have been procured and raised up and positioned, and they are where they are. So they are wearing Nigerian names with Nigerian identities, and they're not serving, I'm afraid, they are not serving Nigeria's interests.
Okay, so given what we know so far, what is the characteristic of the GMO? Can it grow side by side with organic seeds? If not, how far does the danger go? Because I think that specifically can give us a sketchy picture of the whole story. One wonders, why are we being sold seeds? Because normally before, you only just had to harvest. No, you had to plant, harvest, and then you replant the seeds that you harvested. So now we're being told, well, that's not the circle. We have to now buy seeds. And the very concept of buying seeds suggests a different or a new kind of enslavement. Or maybe enslavement is too harsh a word. It introduces a new form of dependency.
It's colonialism. It's colonialism. Joyce, first of all, to flow into your poser, we are hungry. We are told we are hungry. But you'll observe with me that the exacerbation of price hikes came as a result of hyperinflation, which was exacerbated by itself with fuel subsidy removal. It was a macroeconomic policy that exacerbated what you are seeing Nigerians suffer today in terms of price hikes in commodities, in food commodities. Now, the narrative that Nigeria is a hungry population is not our narrative. Purveyors of this deception crafted this narrative, and they come in through their land or foot soldiers in the Bretton Woods institutions to deceive our governments, to take certain policies. I can tell you, fuel subsidy removal, even the president knows that, and he said it, that it will have short-term consequences. And these are the consequences. And suddenly, the purveyors are telling the government to tell everybody, oh, that the food price, the increase in price, food prices is as a result of food insecurity or the lower yields. But between the time fuel subsidy was removed and the time that the impact began to hit on Nigerians, it was not long enough for any crop, even the annual crops, to generate seeds. So the idea is that we cannot plant genetically modified organisms side by side with natural seeds. The reason is because the genetic engineering in them will cross-pollinate and pollute the natural organic seeds and willy-nilly, inadvertently convert them to become genetically modified too. Secondly, as you plant them, they come with conditions. They may tell you good agronomic practices. What they are not telling Nigerians is that there are certain pesticides. Some of the seeds need to be activated by glyphosate, a herbicide, or certain other pesticides. And then there are certain inputs that they will necessarily come with that you have to apply without those inputs. And those inputs are known to further degrade soil fertility, to make it impossible for natural seeds without the genetic modification to thrive on those soils.
Sir, pardon me, sir. Just to quickly interrupt your thought, are there documentations to show the consequence or side effects of pesticides and herbicides within the Nigerian Research Institutes? Because I think people need to fully comprehend what's happening here.
There are documentation, like I can refer you to go to our website, www.cefsar.org.
Okay.
You can get some information on our website. You can also check the HOMEF website, homef.org, I believe. And then there are a lot of research documentation. Go on a website called ResearchGate. ResearchGate has several research publications from Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah, from Nigerians. Some of them carried out in Nigeria. Some of them carried out there when we go for postgraduate studies or research.
Okay.
But you see a lot of research on the impact of pesticides on the health of the human persons, the health of animals, the health of the environment, and the health of the soil, of course.
And once we plant the GMO, okay, good. So now, first generation, second generation, can you simplify that? So, what is the process? You buy the genetically modified seed, you
buy the
plant it.
GMO
Okay,
seed,
good.
you plant it, you harvest it. That's the first generation.
Okay.
Then the second generation is the planting of the first generation. Now, something interesting comes into play. The proprietary companies forbid you in the licensing from replanting the first generation in the first place.
Why are you forbidden?
Why
are you forbidden to replant?
Their agenda, they have an agenda.
Okay.
Their agenda is not to help Nigeria. Their agenda is to further their economic gain. And if you are replanting, it means you are no longer going back to their stores to procure. In this case now, they are forcing the federal government to procure and distribute because they are in a race to spread across the country as quickly as possible. But I can guarantee you, in the next 2-3 cycles, they are no longer going to ask the Nigerian federal government because the federal government will not even have the money to procure the seeds. Farmers will be required to procure the seeds. Because in a business model, if you plant and replant, the engineer, the biotechnology company that is promoting this thing will not make the kind of money they had
initially
profiles.
Objected. Okay, good.
Yes. So that's the idea. The idea is that first generation, they incorporate genetic
characteristics.
Characteristics that even if you go ahead and replant, you won't get the yields that were promised in the first generation. Then, in addition to that, there are contract papers that even forbid you. And if you look at the Nigerian legal system, Nigerian law rather, there are, I think there is a law, if I check my papers, I'll bring it up. There's a law in the plant varieties, in one of the documents, in the policy documents, policy laws, that eventually they are going to activate.
Oh, hold on a second.
If you replant.
Oh, wait, just wait. I want you to hold that thought. I want to quickly go off on a break, and I want you to speak on that thought when we return. Fair?
Okay.
Thank you. Lagos, you're here for it. We're discussing GMO, and Nigeria has to know this.
More news and information coming up. We'll be back in a moment.
The I Beg to Differ debate tournament, the Nationals, is coming. August 12th in Lagos. Witness the brightest minds from across the country in a battle of intellect and eloquence.
Have you ever wondered if controlling resources will be the key to dismantling?
Yes, a child has not been properly academically satisfied.
Well, has such person not also get experience, like your fifth point?
Experience fierce competition.
Peace cannot be kept by force. It's not because there's natural resources there.
Persuasive arguments.
I believe that through a balanced approach to religion and education.
Don't you think that such a person is old enough to decide?
And innovative thinking.
By 1985, the poverty level was below 46%. If they don't have money for tuition, are you saying they are not going to be accountable?
Whether you're a debater or a spectator, mark your calendars for August 12, 2024. I Beg to Differ, the Nationals in Lagos, Nigeria. Get ready to be part of history. For sponsorship and other inquiries, call Lagos Larry Griffin 0706 827 1163, Shola Kolade 0907 173 3835, or send an email to info@nigeriainfo.fm. I Beg to Differ Students Debates Competition, the Tournament of Champions.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Boys and girls, introducing the first of its kind in Nigeria.
the first radio just for kids. It's here at 101.7 Kids FM.
Are you serious?
Oh, yes.
It's going to be fun for kids on your airwaves 24/7.
Talking about from exciting games
Check.
to juicy gist
Double check.
and great music.
Super check.
All these and more on
your #1 PlayStation 101.7 Kids FM.
Don't be the last to join the train. Download the Kids FM app on your iOS or Play Store today and stay tuned on the go.
You can stream on our website at kidsfm.ng.
You can also follow us on all socials at kidsfm.ng and stand a chance to be one of the super kids.
On 101.7 Kids FM. Remember, it's no dull moments on Kids FM.
So tune in and stay locked on 101.7 Kids FM.
Let's play. We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We are back.
We're back on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
We're back, 99.3 Nigeria Info. It is. You're on the sunny side. My name's Joyce. Our guest this afternoon is Dr. Christopher Gamua. So you would not believe how much trouble we have gotten ourselves into. It's very terrible to see what a lack of information can do. Well, at least we're trying here on Nigeria Info to bring you some comprehension, some education, some insight, some knowledge. And the expert is here. Sir, before the break, you were on a thought on some, I don't know, tiny prints and some documentation. I'd like for you to finish that thought, please.
Yeah, it happened in India.
Okay.
And like you are aware, it also was about to happen in Kenya.
Yeah.
And that is where all of this GMO thing is heading to, because the patent holders are out to maximize profits. So they are also pushing across to our national policy drivers the laws that forbid. First of all, the first stage is to forbid farmers who procure their seeds from sharing the seeds with other farmers.
Is
so
that
the
what you said?
wouldn't allow them.
Is that what you say we're about to sign in Nigeria?
Yes, we are heading. There's already a law that is. I think it's in the at appropriate time. I will find it out and share it with you. Okay. There's a law already in our registry that forbids. I think it was passed in 2021. I think it's the plant varieties something law.
Okay.
That you cannot share this. You cannot share it because they are proprietary material.
Okay, hold on a
it's
second.
Not as if
yeah, let me share with you what's coming out of Kenya. This happened in 2021. Smallholder farmers across the country in Kenya have been shocked to learn that the Seed and Plant Variety Act CAPS 326 of 2012 prohibits farmers from sharing, exchanging, or selling uncertified and unregistered seeds.
It's already in Nigeria too.
No,
it's already in Nigeria too, but they are keeping it under wraps because they want to push this GMO first. Then when Nigerians begin to run to court, they will extract it from the archives, from the wraps, and show them that you already have the law.
Yeah, but so all of a sudden, it says when you look at the situation out of Kenya, they're posing seeds as a threat of a sort because now they're calling them unregistered, uncertified seeds. How can seeds be How can organic seeds be dangerous? For it to be certified, for it to be registered, it has to be patented.
That is where we are going to in Nigeria too. That is what they are pushing. That is what they are promoting. And the National Biosafety Management Agency does not know this. The national legislature does not know this. And we have taken it upon ourselves as an organization and as a coalition of civil society organizations who are in this tract to educate our National Assembly, our lawmakers, that this is enslavement being wrapped in a great gift.
Okay, so this is for the sake of clarity in literature, or clarity in language. It said that the genetically modified crops, you would have to, I hear in the contract, as you have stated, and this is me paraphrasing, and hopefully it's not so poor, that you are not allowed to plant for second generation yield. By implication, what that also means is that the seeds can also carry the characteristics of being sterile, because you're saying that even if you decide to go ahead on your own term and then plant the seeds after the first generation harvest in order to get the second generation harvest, which in practicality means you plant the seeds that emerged from your first harvest, you will not get the same yield. By implication, what that means is that those seeds, the second generation seeds, are probably with the potential of being sterile because they are not giving you the same yield as the first. Am I accurate?
You're accurate. There is a technology. There is a genetic technology, the epicide gene, the terminator gene. They summarily describe it as a. They generally refer to it as genetic use restriction technology. There's an epicide gene that they incorporate in the genetic makeup of the seeds. It's a terminator gene that at the second generation, even if you go ahead and plant, it will not. It will sterilize the seed as much as possible. And aside from that, they have double ensured the protection of their patent by enshrining it in the contracts. That if you do that, you will also be liable. You can also be liable in the court of law.
Is that an actual fact? Is that a statement of fact that it's somewhere in the contract that if you plant the seed the second time, you can be held or prosecuted in a court of law?
It is not a conspiracy. It is what they pulled out in India. It's what they're trying to pull out in Kenya. And normally they have a method of operation. They will not bring out all their arsenal in the public. First of all, their greatest selling point is higher yield because of the innate greed in humanity. So this will give you 10 times the yield because humans are gullible. They will not ask questions. And we, the scientists that ask the questions, despite the fact I'm a professor of bioinorganic chemistry, somebody, self-appointed promoter of GMO, will sit somewhere on national television and be describing me as a charlatan, as an ignorant. I'm a professor of bioinorganic chemistry. I schooled in the United Kingdom. I studied in the best of laboratories. I'm a professor of bioinorganic chemistry and experimental medicine. Now, when we speak these things, they call us conspiracy theorists. But the thing is that is where they are going. So they promote higher yield. They promote disease resistance. They promote drought tolerance. And then the federal government will pick it and say, oh, Nigerians are about to die. Joyce, let me tell you, even this morning, I ate enough food here in the Benue. There is a lot of food. It is the insecurity that is preventing farmers from going to the farms. There is a lot of food. It is the macroeconomic policies that are creating inflation that is causing food prices to go up beyond the reach of the ordinary people because there are no significant increases in incomes of people. But these contracts are there hidden. They keep them to their chest. Once you accept GMOs and they succeed in destroying your natural seed system, they now pull out the fine print for you. And that fine print, that is why the reportage reference you read there says Kenyans were shocked. That means these things, the fine prints were hidden from open view when these things were being negotiated. That is the same thing. You'll observe that law, that plant varieties protection law you cited from Kenya, is the same law that they pushed into Nigeria. And what they do is that they craft these agreements, these laws, this legislation centrally over there in the US or in Europe, and they now send it across the nations, the third world, African nations, and some Southern American nations. And all you need to do is just to edit, change some terminology, some specifics to reflect your realities, your location, your name, and stuff like that. That's what they do. The same act is in Nigeria, 2021. Maybe we should Google Plant Varieties Protection Act in Nigeria, 2021. When we get it, I am sure that clause will also be there.
Are you also of the opinion, and this can be assumed to be a statement of fact, that the GMO seeds or crop is capable of eradicating the biological system of organic plants, or the biology?
It's not my opinion.
Okay.
It's not my opinion. It's a scientific fact. It's a scientific fact. I repeat again, I am a professor of bioinorganic chemistry. And these are things that I am conversant with in the research industrial complex. It's not just an opinion. It is a scientific fact. There are researches that prove the potency of these genetically engineered seeds to cross-pollinate organic seeds and natural biological crops of that variety and wipe them off to replace them with their kinds. That is what is in actual fact. And if Nigeria makes a mistake, and policymakers should understand this, and I would like Nigerians to responsibly, I reiterate, responsibly ask questions to our representatives. Because the representatives will be there for a while. They will be replaced with a new vote system, a new vote. A new vote will bring others in. But the policies, the decisions they make now have the potential to impact generations to come of this country. So as Nigerians, I will ask Nigerians to responsibly responsibly ask questions to our leaders to understand the implications of what they are signing into. Because these GMOs have the capacity, research-wise, we have confirmed it through research, that over time, they will wipe off organic systems. Let me give you an example that what happened in the US. When GMOs were introduced in the US, and all the practices that concomitantly come with GMOs, over the years, with data we have pulled out from the USDA, that's United States Department of Agriculture, that's the similar to our Ministry of Agriculture. With data we have pulled out, we realized that while GMOs were introduced with the promise of less application of pesticides, herbicides, the reverse was the case. The application of herbicides was on a steady increase. And then, secondly, we observed that soil fertility was also on a steady decrease. And thirdly, we observed that cumulatively per hectare yield was also decreasing in the United States. This is as per data from the United States Department of Agriculture. And what that means, what research inferred was that because of the hyper promotion of the touted gains like higher yield for GMOs, farmers began to gradually turn away from the traditional good agronomic practices. And it can happen in Nigeria. For example, where I am in Nigeria, most of the farmers now are not pulling out weeds. They are not even observing what we taught them in school, in the university, about weed control. They don't even bother about biologic or other natural weed control. They say, oh, there are chemicals. Oh, give me glyphosate. Oh, give me 2,4-D. Oh, mix this with this. And we'll clear the weeds. And gradually, the knowledge, the cultural knowledge transfer is being wiped out. And that is what happened in the United States of America. As I speak to you now, agriculture in the US is heavily dependent on GMOs, and they are paying a heavy price in disease burden, in environmental toxicities, and even agricultural shift in agricultural practices. That's what we are going to experience in Nigeria.
Okay, can you tell us what insecurity is like in Benue? What information would you have on that?
Sometime around 2009, farmers in Benue began to experience a strange occurrence. Whereas hitherto 2009, the herders, cattle herders, Fulani cattle herders, used to come with their cattle and graze and go back. From 2009, they started coming with AK-47s and machetes, and they started killing and burning houses, burning settlements of farmers, destroying farms. From 2009, naturally, many farmers began to get killed in Benue and then progressively being displaced from their farmlands. And these were the areas that actually contributed heavily to Benue's attribution as the food basket of the nation. So it happened for several years, over a decade. And what that generated is what you are experiencing today, because food output in Benue significantly decreased as a result of farmers' inaccessibility to their farms. But thank God, we have a new governor. The current governor of Benue State, the Reverend Gentleman, the Reverend Father Dr. Hyacinth Alia, he has come with a new approach of diplomatic negotiation and empowerment of the local populations in more diplomatic ways than kinetic ways to grant farmers, to create way for farmers to go back to their.
I may have lost you temporarily again. Hello, sir. Do I have you where I want you?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yes, thank you very much.
So as I was saying, what we have in Benue now is that through the governor's pragmatic approach to security, more farmers are going back to their farmlands. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can, but I can't see you.
Yes, I think there is a glitch, but I'll be back. You'll soon see me.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll keep talking.
Please go ahead.
So more farmers are going back to their farms, and food production will potentially return to its old state. But now, what happens is this: what happened was that because farmers were largely out of, can you see me now?
Yes, I can, sir.
Yeah, because farmers were largely out of their farms, food output decreased. But as I speak to you now, there are less attacks. Yes, the attacks are still there. It's not something that will stop abruptly. They are still there, but they're not at the frequency and intensity that they were before.
Okay.
There are less attacks. Farmers are gaining more confidence to return back to their farms. And very soon, if this trajectory continues, food production in Benue will return to its all-time high.
Okay. Look, I'm so grateful. I have kept you here more than the time I did promise, but this has been so informative. If I continue, I'm going to keep you here a lot longer. And I know you said you had an earlier engagement. Thank you so much. The telephone line's already ringing, and people have sent me messages on WhatsApp, but unfortunately, there's not enough time to ask you those questions. So what's going to happen is I'll probably just forward them to you, and then the next time you're here, which will be sooner than later, you'd have to speak on these matters just for the benefit of the public and for the education of every Nigerian. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you, dear listeners.
And just before you go, we need to state, and I think it was my opinion, but I want to know what you think of it, that every Nigerian should hold a seed bank. What do you think about that? I think that's, at this point, very crucial.
That's what our organization is also promoting, Center for Food Safety and Agricultural Research. We are promoting that every Nigerian should hold a seed bank. But beyond that,
I'm losing you again. 99.3 Nigeria Info, the sunny side. Our guest this afternoon is Christopher Amua. We're discussing GMO. Okay, sir, I lost you momentarily. Actually, I lost you the last, 30 seconds. So hopefully you can catch your thoughts.
Yes, I said, if you can still hear me.
Yes, I can hear you, sir. Yeah.
We are also promoting, we are the Center for Food Safety and Agricultural Research. Okay. We are also promoting that every Nigerian should hold a seed bank. Every Nigerian farmer should hold a seed bank. Okay. But we're also saying that despite Nigerians holding a seed bank, we as Nigerians should ask questions to place a wage from our government representatives going the way of Kenya to declare sooner than later that it is illegal for us to hold our seed bank.
That is insanity when you put it like that. Yeah, because that's exactly what it means. It's now, it could become illegal for you to hold a seed bank because it's illegal for you to distribute it in Kenya.
That's where they are going. That's where they are going. In South Africa, it's illegal for you to plant a garden in your home.
Oh. Thank you very much again for your time.
We're hopeful. We're hopeful that with the... I understood the last time that the president or the first lady of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, was trying to promote a concept of every home a garden. Yeah. So with the president's wife promoting that kind of thing, if they don't get at the presidency to stop her, I think Nigeria will be better off.
Well, let's look forward to that. Thank you again for your time. I really do appreciate your knowledge shared with us this afternoon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
99.3 Nigeria Info, the sunny side. My name is Joyce, and our guest has been Professor Dr. Christopher Amua, and we've been discussing GMO. You can catch that recording on our YouTube page, Facebook, and our website, nigeriainfo.fm. All from the break. We'll be right back.
Quality talk.
Intelligent conversations.
Always interesting.
So engaging.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.